what is the end game for a party of violence? And I'm almost reluctant to bring this up because it is, you know, I'm not a fan of conspiracy thinking. In fact, we'll be talking about conspiracy thinking in the third hour. But I am capable of adding 1 + 1 and coming up with 2. A bridge was blown up on Sunday morning. We all woke up to the news that this bridge was blown up outside Philadelphia on I-95, one of the busiest, I'm not sure if it might be the busiest interstate highway in the country. And 160,000 cars a day, vehicles a day, cars and trucks a day go over it. And my first thought went to Clay Higgins' tweet, which I believe was Friday, might have even been Thursday. I believe we talked about it on Friday of last week. If not, I've just, you know, been reading it so much everywhere that, you know, it seems like we did. He's the Republican from Putinville. And he tweeted, quote, 1/50K know your bridges. Now, 1/50K refers to the standard scale that military maps use. Military maps are standardized at 1,000 inches, or 1 to 50,000. And the reason for that is so that you can go, you know, and the military can go anywhere in the country and look at a map and know exactly what the scale is, so that when that scale is imposed on, you know, anything from fighter aircraft to tanks to battle plans, everything is consistent. So this is military map scale, and it's in particular used to describe military maps of military bases, like Fort Campbell in Tennessee or Fort Rucker in Alabama. The Know Your Bridges refers to, I believe, blowing up bridges. I mean, the last time we had a fascist movement in the United States that actually militarily challenged or terroristically challenged the United States of America was 1861. It was called the Confederacy. You know, the southern states had become basically a fascist empire for about 30 years, from the 1820s to the 1850s. Democracy ended in the South, and the South rose up and challenged the North, and we call that the Civil War. And one of the main tactics in the Civil War to stop Union armies, and frankly that the Union armies used also to stop the Southern armies, was blowing up bridges. This is a pretty common thing. Similarly, the last time terrorists in the United States, American terrorists, took a bridge and aimed rifles at federal agents, assault weapons, military-style weapons at federal agents, was on April 12th, 2014, when the Cliven Bundy guys threatened to fire down on federal and state agents in Bunkerville. And, you know, this was a major big deal. And you know, it was a very real threat. And in fact, the guy who held one of the guys who held the assault weapons later ran for public office as a MAGA Republican. I mean, he didn't win, but he nearly. The Bible of the white supremacist movement, the book that Tim McVeigh was selling at Waco during the siege and had given away multiple copies during his life. Many of these people who are members of these militia over and over and over again. It's a novel, and it's called the Turner Diaries. And in the Turner Diaries, there are multiple examples of people blowing up power stations and bridges. For example, this is a quote from the Turner Diaries. Quote, 5 later explosions closed the Houston airport, destroyed the city's main power generating station, and collapsed 2 strategically located overpasses and a bridge, making 2 of the most heavily traveled freeways in the area impassable. Now, what he's describing here is the beginning of the revolution. What caused the good white people of America to rise up and start killing black people and Jews. He goes on to say, Houston became an instant disaster, as much to keep an angry and panic-stricken public under control as to counter the organization. The Houston action thoroughly dispelled the growing notion that our revolution had been stifled, And after Houston, there was Wilmington, then Providence, then Racine. It became apparent to us that the revolution had entered a new and more distinctive or decisive phase. Now, we've already seen multiple power substations around the United States. There are 5 of them just up the road from us, shot out by right-wing militia people. There have been several in other states. There are people who have read the Turner Diaries, and they think, you know, hey, if we can take out a power substation. So the first thing I thought of when I read, you know, first of all, Clay Higgins, you know, tweeting about our POTUS, which is real president of the United States. That's his phrase, Trump. He also said this is a perimeter probe from the oppressors, right? The arrest of Trump. Perimeter probes feature prominently in Turner Diaries as well, in the Turner Diaries. But, you know, like I said, my blown up by a right-wing terrorist. And here we are, you know, 9:14 Pacific time, 12:14 Eastern time on Monday, you know, a day later. Who drove that along to? What was in the truck? They're not sure of any of these. At least according to news reports as of about an hour ago. It was the last time I heard the news reports and you know, checked online. It might have been an accident. But how does a tanker with 6,000 gallons of explosive, you know, highly explosive petroleum product end up parked under a major thoroughfare and just go up in flames? I mean, you know, have you ever seen a tanker go up in flames that wasn't the result of, you know, an accident or something? And even those are fairly rare. I mean, these things are well built. So I don't know. You know, nobody knows whether this was a right-wing attack like with these power stations. Keep in mind, when the power substations were taken out, the one here in Portland, the 2 or 3 up in Tacoma, the ones on the East Coast, I believe they were in New Jersey, when they were taken out, all the news reports initially said, oh, yeah, it looks like an accident. Or maybe it's some, you know, kids with a 22. Turns out it was militia members trying to, you know, black out parts of cities in order to start the revolution. So here we have, you know, members of Congress like Clay Higgins and others tweeting this kind of rhetoric that basically is declaring civil war in the United States. And this is the kind of rhetoric that encourages stochastic terrorism, the lone wolf terrorism, that encourages these kinds of attacks on American infrastructure. And what all this demonstrates, the fact that, you know, the vast majority of the Republican Party right now is totally in the bag for Donald Trump. Even the people who are running against him for the presidency. Obviously, they're not running for the White House. If they were, they would use this as an opportunity to take down Trump. They must be running for vice president. I can't come up with another explanation. Why is Mike Pence... I don't think Mike Donald's not going to choose you as vice president again. Or Ron DeSantis, maybe. Or Vivek Ramaswamy, I mean, or Nikki Haley. By the way, over the weekend, Ramaswamy was on CNN. He followed Jim Jordan. Both of them, again, lying on the air in defense of Donald Trump. Well, they could have taken, you know, Hillary Clinton did the same thing. No, she didn't. Oh, Joe Biden did the same. No, he didn't. Stop lying to us. And Dana Bash was like, just, you know, she tried to talk back to them, but, you know, Jim Jordan is like, you know, verbal diarrhea. It just doesn't stop.